All right, happy Monday, Bitcoiners. Rob here with your Bitcoin News Weekly recap. Our newsletter comes out every Monday morning, and we are here to break it all down. In this issue, we've got Stake and Shake. Now accepts Bitcoin at all 393 U.S. locations. Coinbase faces $400 million fallout from a major data breach, and they're refusing to pay a $20 million ransom. Companies like Mercado Libre are buying up 400 Bitcoin. We've got Nebraska passing a mining law that hurts miners, while they're all really hurting in the stock market. The Moody's downgraded U.S. credit rating, while Ukraine is prepping a Bitcoin reserve and Latvia might follow. And now a Bitcoin corporate arms race is underway. And are retail investors fueling it? Today, I am very happy to be joined by James Tzikis. He is the founder of the Jersey City Bitcoin Meetup, as well as a developer. James, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Good morning, Bitcoiners. How are we doing today?
Yes. Glad to have you here. You are a stalwart of the New York City metro area Bitcoin community. You've been in this for a while. As I said, you've done a lot for the community. I'm very happy to have you here up on stream with us. Yes.
Yep. Happy. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Cool. So yes, we have a job today, and that job is to break down our newsletter, right? So the newsletter this week is entitled "Who Sold to Saylor?" As public companies acquire hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, who could possibly be the one selling it to them? So we'll dive right in. And at the top here in our adoption section, the first news piece is that public corporations have already bought 3.3x more Bitcoin than the new supply in 2025, exceeding the estimated annual issuance of 164,250 Bitcoin. So as you can see right here, they're gobbling it up. Almost 200,000 Bitcoin in the corporate treasuries just bought this year. Yes, and so the grand question is, who is selling this Bitcoin? Is it you, James? Are you the one selling them this Bitcoin?
No, it's not me selling Bitcoin. I often ponder the same myself. Like, who is selling this Bitcoin? I recently saw some takes on Twitter of people, spending their sats and that being the reason why Saylor's getting so much Bitcoin. I don't think that's it, guys. I'm sure OGs are selling their coins for a better life. I think they should hang on a little longer. But if you got like 100 or 1,000, who am I to tell you what to do, right? So I think that's where the coins are coming from.
Yeah, and we'll see that in the charts later. But it's a feeding frenzy out there, right? Every single day now, we are seeing new companies coming out saying they are establishing a Bitcoin treasury. And in your opinion, do you think that this is the catalyst for this bull run, right? Like every bull run needs to have a new story. And do you think this one is it?
100%. And it's I wish I could say this is my own original thought, right? But I was doing a blog post recently, and it was just reciprocating what Saylor has said, that this is going to be the year of Bitcoin treasury companies. There was one last year, it was MicroStrategy. Then came a few more others. These stocks are leading the stock market. Now there's 100 of them. We're multiplying, right? We're at the point here where there's 2, there's 4, there's 8. We're multiplying. And Saylor very eloquently can explain to like Microsoft, for example. He did a presentation for Microsoft shareholders how just adding this part of your business can add like $1 trillion to your balance sheet and your stock valuation. So it's becoming a no-brainer. And I think shareholders are ultimately going to be the ones that kick down the door and saying, we want this.
Yeah, it's adding the rocket fuel. I mean, look at Metaplanet, their performance in Japan is undeniable. MicroStrategy, I mean, I think it would be even higher up in the list of companies by market cap if they weren't juicing that ATM so hard over the last couple of weeks. But it seems like Saylor knows that this trend is not going to slow down, and they need to accumulate as much Bitcoin as humanly possible before we enter a new zip code in the Bitcoin price. Speaking of Bitcoin price, last night we had the highest weekly close of all time. And the New Jersey City Bitcoin meetup Telegram group was alive. We were all watching it as it happened.
It was wild.
It was, we pumped super hard on a Sunday night. There was a $400 million leverage long over on Hyperliquid that was open. But the thing is, like, we've spent so little time up here, right? It's 104,000 and we're sort of jaded, right?
I think this time was the longest we spent over 100K, this most recent time.
Yeah, it's been 40 days in total since we've been over 100K, as you can see here. But yeah, people, seems to have lost James. Let's see if we can get him back. Yeah, people are, there's my man.
Sorry, my browser crashed.
No worries. But yeah, I mean, 40 days above 100K now, and it's still not talked about, right? It's still not on the tip of people's tongues when you're walking down the street. Bitcoiners know what's going on, but very few others have got the memo.
You said it. I'm kind of engaging with people who maybe I've mentioned Bitcoin to in years past or months past at this point. They probably got to a breaking point where they're like, I'm going to stop hanging out with this dude because I don't want to hear about Bitcoin every time. But like when we're re-engaging, now they're just kind of, hey, what's up? Oh, how's Bitcoin doing? Oh, it's $105,000, right? They're last time they heard Bitcoin was on death's door, $20,000, right? FTX was about to explode. So retail isn't here, and that's really bullish. That's a really bullish signal, in my opinion. So this is exclusively being driven by institutions and hodlers like us, right?
Yeah, man. And maybe the next wave of getting retail on board is things like Steak and Shake. Successfully rolling out Bitcoin payments to all 393 locations in America last year. We're over here on the East Coast. Steak and Shakes are down in Florida up through the Midwest. So we personally did not get to go this week, but from everything that we saw, it seemed like an extremely smooth rollout, right?
Yeah.
I think,
and free advertising was what I would describe it.
yeah. Yes. I mean, you got a team of 10 million plus Bitcoiners who will sing your praises if you are willing to accept Bitcoin, and they'll go out of the way. People were driving for hours to go to a Steak and Shake and spend their sats. And I think it brought up a good talking point that people often bring up. I mean, people say, never sell your Bitcoin, right? Well, if there's a merchant who's willing to accept it, Bitcoin needs to be used as a medium of exchange, right? And you shouldn't be scared to spend some stats on an institution that is willing to accept them. Show how easy it is to use Bitcoin. Bring friends, bring family, spread the word. I mean, I think that was a huge takeaway too. There were no videos of Lightning payment failures, right? Everything was a success. It went through. I think
Great point.
Speed Wallet was on the back end of this, right? And so every single receipt had try Speed on it. So you might think they were trying to push drugs on you, but no, they were saying try Speed Wallet. And I mean, these receipts had the sats per dollar and the fiat amount. And so, I mean, it really just pushes open the Overton window and changes everything when you've got a place that reaches 100 million people a year, right? They have that many customers in America.
Absolutely. I work on Bitcoin implementations on things like websites, e-commerce websites and stuff like that. And I really have to take my hat off to them. I think they did a really good implementation of Lightning. I would argue it's just as quick as using a credit card. From the videos I've seen, are debatably quicker. And you mentioned something earlier that I think is totally true. I remember onboarding to the Lightning Network years ago, and it was common to wait 20 seconds. Like, is this thing going to work? Is it not going to work? To your point now, the Lightning Network is, I think when I point my phone and I scan a QR code these days, it's not that same. Is this going to work? Is it going to take 20 seconds? It works. It's cheap. It's fast. This is a great solution. I think anyone who has an existing business should consider this. These people would normally pay 3% on this transaction. Now they're not. And you have like a cult fan base that can't wait to get in there and spend these sats. And just one other thing I'd like to introduce to anyone this morning who hasn't heard of spending and replace. So you spend your sats if you want to encourage others to accept them, to support a circular Bitcoin economy. If the transaction you're going to make is maybe like more than 1/100th, you know, 1/100 as a fraction of your Bitcoin stack, maybe don't buy it, right? Like maybe keep stacking. But if it is that insignificant, you could probably do what I'd call spend and replace. So just buy back the sats, the same exact amount, or maybe a little bit more. And that way you always have more sats. So I would encourage people to engage in this and use that strategy. And once you start looking at it like that, spending sats is kind of, you know, you won't get as angry as your fellow plebs for spending sats.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a certain sense of satisfaction spending Bitcoin too, right? I mean, this thing, it's great to see number go up, but until you're sending transactions back and forth and even receiving Bitcoin for payment for something too, right? It's the other half of the transaction. So it really, if we want this to be the neutral reserve asset of the world, we want it to be money for the people, by the people, you got to use it. And this was a really, I think, flawless execution done by these guys.
Absolutely. I found myself looking at all their locations and thinking when, obviously we'll be visiting them out in Vegas, but I was just looking up all their locations. I saw there was one in New York that closed. This is how you engage with, I saw some statistics that crypto, hate that term, right, guys? But crypto voters, there was like 5 million, 6 million crypto voters in the United States, right? We're here. Our bags have been pumped. And we want some cheeseburgers, right? Sell us some stuff. If you're out there taking note and you're working for somewhere that isn't Steak and Shake, take note.
Yeah, we've got the influence, and I mean, it would be a super interesting study to see how much free advertising they got over the last weekend, right? They've been playing into it. Their homepage has Bitcoin on it. They've been quote tweeting people who have posted on Twitter their receipts. So they did the right social media strategy. They played right into it. They're calling themselves Steak Toshi, and I'm sure they've made a pretty penny off of this weekend. But that's another thing that we got to talk about is that I think, from what I've heard, they are instantly converting all the Bitcoin to cash as soon as it is spent, right? I mean, again, most of these franchises are owner-owned, right? So, I mean, that guy needs to pay his bills, pay his employees. And so if you've got a big fat weekend in a currency you're totally not used to, it could cause some issues. But I mean, hopefully they will see the success of this weekend and corporate will integrate some form of corporate treasury, right?
Yeah, it's progress. It's baby steps. From now to hold all of that Bitcoin or just like a portion of it sounds a little more reasonable, right? It's just a small step. But before we took this first step of accepting Bitcoin payments, that wasn't even in the Overton window, right? So
it's a new day. Yes. All right. Getting back to Bitcoin News Weekly, you can find the newsletter at weekly.bitcoinnews.com. Go right there, subscribe, get it right into your inbox every Monday morning. And to round out the adoption section, 14 U.S. states have reported $632 million in MSTR exposure for Q1 in public retirement and treasury funds, a collective increase of $302 million in one quarter with an average increase in holding size of 44%. So these public retirement funds, these treasury funds, they look like they want Bitcoin exposure, and MSTR is the most well-known way to do it. To jump that much by 300 million in one quarter is something, right? That's over $250 million. Yeah. So, I mean, California State Teachers Retirement System, I mean, that is a huge, huge pension fund, and they've increased by 18% quarter over quarter. It seems as if they want in. One interesting pension fund that did sell, though, that was just reported, was Wisconsin. They had a big IBIT position. They were one of the first ones to really dive in, and that made a lot of headlines, but they seem to have sold. But the number of pension funds and big treasuries that are getting into not only IBIT, but also MSTR and other Bitcoin treasury companies, it just seems to be exploding. So yeah, but Wisconsin, they might have sold their IBIT, but they still have got their MSTR.
Yeah, I think that also some central banks. I'm just asking Grok here, not trusting myself, but Norway and like Switzerland and Saudi Arabia, their central banks have also invested in this stuff. So you
Yeah,
know,
you're right. Norway was the one to lead the way on that charge, then Switzerland, and now Saudi Arabia. Yes, they announced a position. I think Saudi Arabia's position is rather small, but you got to get your toes wet somehow, right? And
yeah.
then it begins.
I think the signal here is I'm not as well versed on pensions as some other folks that I listen to here talking about macro, but my understanding is that pensions, some pensions at least, are not in a great place, right? We've had like populational issues where the boomers were a large population class, and now they're aging out, and now we have a younger population class coming in. And some of these pensions are what you would call undersubscribed
Underfunded.
or underfunded. There you go. And so I just what that means from a simple standpoint is that there's not enough money coming in, and the returns generated aren't going to be enough for the liabilities to pay out, right? So these funds need growth, and ideally they want to be in a position where they're overfunded, and if they are, I think that it makes a lot of sense to buy into a position to Bitcoin or MicroStrategy because you're overfunded. It means you can take more risk, right? Even if you're underfunded, I would debate you possibly need it more, right? Because you're in a worse financial situation. But I think this is good, and what the signal here is that these aren't retail investors, right? This is a financial professional who's handling retail investors' retirement accounts specifically. Sorry, guys, bumped into the mic. So the signal here is though that the working man is investing into Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is, I wish Bitcoin weren't a political issue sometimes, but it inherently is. And so the working man now, when someone comes in to tax Bitcoin, they're attacking people's pensions. So that's just another point of how ingrained into the world we're getting here.
Everywhere, right? And it's the way to do it. Slowly but surely, stealthily behind the scenes, everybody's going to have Bitcoin exposure in their retirement account. Speaking of Bitcoin exposure in the retirement account, big news out of Coinbase this last week, right? So two big events happened. First, well, they came out in the beginning of the week saying that they were finally included into the S&P 500. Ironically, fittingly, timely enough, they kicked out Discover Financial. Remember Discover? Like that used to be a big credit card company. I remember seeing ads for that as a kid, but not so much anymore. But yes, they are Discover Financial out, Coinbase into the S&P 500. So that means that yes, people are going to have Bitcoin and crypto exposure in their retirement funds. And it means that there's a lot of indexes that need to passively buy Coinbase because of this. But then just 2 days later, they also announced one of the biggest data breaches in crypto history, right? They reported that it was just 1% of their monthly transacting users who had their data lost, breached. What happened was they had overseas contractors that were bribed to sell the customer information. And then once it's been sold, these social engineers will call you up. They will send you texts saying that your account has been compromised and that you need to get in contact with them. Once you start talking with them, they will give you a quote unquote safe seed phrase to send your Bitcoin or crypto to, because as they say, your account's been compromised. But at the end of the day, that is their address. You send it over and boom, they own your Bitcoin.
Yep.
And now Coinbase is projecting that they will lose between 180 million to 400 million dollars in order to compensate people who have been attacked and had their Bitcoin and crypto stolen. And of course, the last tidbit of the story is that the social engineers offered Coinbase $20 million ransom. They said, give us $20 million in Bitcoin and we will not release this customer data. We will not sell it on the dark web. And Brian came out last week acting all tough saying, no, we will offer a bounty instead. So yes, talk to me, James. What do you think about this
Well, it's just a shame that these things consistently happen in Bitcoin, but I don't think that they're going away. So anytime you're forced to do KYC, you're going to become a threat to this, especially when these employees are overseas in third world countries and money just I mean, they're going to get way more money from someone stealing someone's data than they will in years of this job that they're doing. So these issues aren't going away, and KYC is not going away. So you need to get used to these types of attack vectors. Assume people have your information. Assume they know where you bought your Bitcoin. Assume they know your name. Assume they might have your ID. Right. So this is just kind of the world we're living in today. And you need to have a healthy level of skepticism and paranoia. Right. And I want to applaud you for really digging into this and unpacking it and helping your viewers understand how these attacks work, because unless you've like heard an attack call, you can check out JuneSeth if you want to hear one of those. They are advanced, they are sophisticated, they sound real. So just watch out if you haven't. But I will say that I didn't realize that Coinbase was paying back customers who were affected. I mean, I applaud them. I think a lot of other companies wouldn't do that. At the same time, I think people need to get their head on screwed correctly. And maybe if getting your crypto back after losing it, I'm the type of kid that needs to get burned by the stove, right, to learn, right? So just watch out, guys. Be careful. I think Coinbase could have handled this better. I'll say that. I mean, I gave them some kudos for returning their affected customers, but obviously this shouldn't happen in the first place. And I I think they did a really interesting masterclass in marketing by spinning this into a win, saying that now we're going to protect our customers by paying $20 million to go after these people. But the signal here is people are coming for your Bitcoin, guys. Don't trust Coinbase, don't trust anyone, and just watch out.
Yeah, I mean, these social engineers have your name, your date of birth, your address, the last four of your social security, your driver's license. Yeah, so they have pretty much everything they need to attack your identity, right? And to make a clone of you online. And so, I mean, that brings up broader questions, right? Is KYC the actual illegal activity here as we move into this data, digital, AI-driven world? Having all of your personal information, again, enough to attack your identity, to clone you online, in one place, it creates a honeypot. And especially for something like Bitcoin, like crypto, if they know that you've purchased, and they can see your transaction history too, right? They know when you bought. So
that's a really scary one. They know your balances. That's scary.
Yeah, and so they go after the big fish, right? They make it worth their time. But it's a hard thing because a lot of people are onboarded by Coinbase, right? It's they're the ones who are playing the ads during the NBA playoffs, calling out the Fed, right? They're even calling out the Federal Reserve and saying that you're printing infinite amount of money. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. But
the shipping container ad was fire, by the way.
Yeah, they've got some good marketing sense for sure. I just wish they had better sense as to who they hired to look over your customer information, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an increasing problem in just the world. I'll say, I've done remote interviews and things like that, and oftentimes I get someone who's not in the country and they're asking me to show my ID on a video call. I mean, this is not exclusive to crypto, right? You just need to be careful these days.
Yeah.
With what you show. But it really does beg the question, can we improve upon this system? I understand that there's capital controls, there's KYC. I understand why they exist, and we could debate that, but there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way.
Yeah, peer-to-peer, right?
Yeah.
Robosats, they don't ask for your ID. They don't ask for any of that. So yeah, I mean, for newbies, it's harder. I think there definitely are some people who just dove right into buying non-KYC Bitcoin, right? Peer-to-peer, buying it with cash. But for the average person, I think that's a taller task to really ask them compared to seeing an ad on TV for Coinbase, going to the website and actually handing over your information.
Totally, but this kind of further drives home the point. Like I'm someone who is fully aware of non KYC options like RoboSats, and maybe I've used it here and there just to get familiar with it. But it very well may be whatever premium is on RoboSats or BISC, I don't know, right? But like you may pay that premium, but it may save you your data, save you your identity, right? So here we are. That might be the case.
Yeah, because I mean, they're not just attacking over the phone, but actually in person too. I mean, this attack last week in Paris, the daughter of a French crypto executive narrowly escaped a kidnapping attempt in Paris. Yeah, last Tuesday, masked assailants came out of this van right here and tried to force her into it before being fought off by her partner and bystanders. So, I mean, this is blurred here, but the man in this was all bloodied up. You have some guys here coming out. This guy actually in the white shirt picked up the gun that was dropped by these attackers, and then this guy throws the fire extinguisher at the van as they drive off. There's a bit of a bystander effect in the beginning here as the attack started happening, but then the people rushed in and were willing to help. I mean, this guy just beats his head out and then it goes away. But yeah, I mean, these things are happening in France, right? The Ledger, of course, hardware wallet comes from France, and one of their executives was recently kidnapped and lost a finger, right? I mean, and because of this, the French authorities are putting further scrutiny and intense protection on the people who work in the crypto industry and protecting them, because I think there's been 50 types of these attacks / kidnapping attempts, and I think 14 of them in the last year have happened in France.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, what's going on in France? I think is another question you got to ask.
It's crazy. I was recently talking to a family member who is a little older and not quite into Bitcoin, right? But I was just anecdotally saying how France is not quite as safe as it used to be. They seem to kind of disagree. That's I've noticed when talking about like the safety of Europe or France or something that's kind of like a controversial issue or whatever. So they seem to disagree. But then I went into this specific case and the fact that there's been many like it. And this just kind of shows how out of it retail is or whatever. But their first comment was like, oh, well, maybe they were like, Bitcoin and crypto is used for like money laundering stuff. Maybe that plays a factor here. And I was like, you're blaming a woman who's holding a baby, who's, my understanding is she's like the daughter of some crypto guy, right? So like, what? Like, I don't know. I applaud France for taking it seriously, but that probably took how many violent attacks and people probably telling them, hey guys, this is a serious issue, right? So, I mean, this is a serious issue. We need to take it seriously. Clearly we're becoming a bigger target in the world, especially if your daddy runs a crypto exchange, right? I think countries need to take this kind of stuff seriously. This is not just like petty crime, right? Like stealing someone's wallet, right? This is like a targeted attack. And why are they targeting you? Well, they're not. Warren Buffett has $300 billion, right? They're not targeting him, right? Because he can't like drain his money and give it to you if you were put a point, like threaten them violently, right? Like that's why they're coming after crypto people. So it's important to understand the technology. Understand how Bitcoin works, maybe only holds a reasonable amount on you. So if you're under threat, you could send someone an amount that will make them happy, right? But like, don't give yourself the ability to even do that. Geographically distribute your keys, right? There's ways to protect yourself. That then begs the question, like, what will they do if you can't pay them, right? But you can game theory this stuff out, is my point.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point, is make it super hard, right? Even for yourself to move the coins. You got to be geographically distributed, as you said, so that if they do take your person and your phone is with you, they can't just access everything by unlocking your phone, right? That is a huge mistake to make. You want your keys in different places. You want different, and again, you're right. You want to gameplay the stuff out in your head before it actually happens. And a big tip that we were seeing with that clip when it was posted last week is, if anyone tries to abduct you, fight like hell when it first happens, right? You do not want to go to the second location. You want to make sure that they cannot take you from that original position. So
You made such a great point. That is something you don't think about. Someone was talking about a violent attack on the subway. I live here right next to New York. Someone was talking about taking the path into New York and a violent encounter. Something called the bystander effect. If you don't know about it, it's like you're in New York. There's hundreds of people. Something bad's happening, but no one helps because no one else is helping, right? So the bystander effect is something Rob just talked about. You can break that. I didn't really know about this. You can break this by calling someone out. Apparently. So if something's happening, call them, you in the red shirt, call the police, call for help, whatever. So you can do these things. These aren't things that we like go through in everyday life. I'm not sure. It seems like they handled it pretty decently. They fought like hell. I think that's the main thing. But I learned about this recently. Call someone out, ask them to help.
Yeah. Call out people in the crowd, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
engage with them. Make sure that they know that they're not watching a movie, right? This is not something that's playing out on their phone. It's happening in real life, right in front of you. And you do have power. You do have the ability to make a difference. So do it. It's crazy times, right? When the money breaks down, you see these acts like this tend to happen more. So keep your head on a swivel. And again, also don't brag, right? You can make yourself more of a target by the things that you say and post and share. Be happy with what you got. You don't need to, it doesn't make it any more fulfilling to have something when you're posting about it online, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all love dunking on the normies. I love it as much as the next guy. But maybe holding a wad of money isn't a good idea, guys.
Yeah. Be cool with it. Be cool with it. Cool. Yeah. So that's the legal section. And then moving on over to markets, we are seeing a growth of Latin American countries that are joining onto the Bitcoin Treasury adoption. So we had Mercado Libre, Latin America's largest e-commerce company with 84,000 employees and a $127 billion market cap. They purchased 400 Bitcoin. We had a Brazilian firm, Meluiz, I believe is the way you say it. They just started a Bitcoin treasury. And on a recent earnings call, the CEO said that adding Bitcoin, they just did this, but he said that adding Bitcoin to their company's treasury was like strapping a nuclear reactor onto their company stock, right? So they announced it last week and the stock was already extremely outperforming. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, Latin America, you would think would be a great place to lead this charge, right? In terms of having currencies that are facing inflation and sometimes a lot of political instability in these countries. You would expect more Latin American companies to be jumping on this train, but we're seeing a lot of course, American, European, and Asian companies before we're seeing Latin America. But Latin America also has the grassroots adoption, right? So they are from people who have a necessity for better money and to save their purchasing power are getting onto Bitcoin before these companies are.
Yeah, it's almost like the opposite of why people adopt Bitcoin, due to inflation, right? The people of these countries might see a stronger use case to use Bitcoin because their currency is being hyperinflated, because they're used to, they're used to using things like a refrigerator as money because it's literally better than the money, right? But it might take a little longer for these companies to get it. I don't know, but this is just kind of the trend of what we were talking about earlier of Bitcoin treasury reserves rolling out here into the environment. And this is kind of like the micro strategy. This is going to be the micro strategy of the South, South America, right? We have Metaplanet in the West, and so, or I guess in the East, sorry. And so this is how it starts. And then, I mean, this actually starts. This sounds like a somewhat reputable company, right? MicroStrategy was kind of, I hate to say this, kind of a joke when it started this strategy. It was a zombie company. A better description is a zombie company, right? But it went on to be the best performing stock. It 4x'd Nvidia since 2021. It's the best performing stock. It's been included in the Nasdaq. It will probably soon be included in the S&P 500, right? So here's another example. It's probably a little harder when you're a South American company. You don't see MicroStrategy yourself in MicroStrategy as much, right, as you might see in Mercado Libre. So this is something that any company can do that will immediately bring shareholder value. So why wouldn't you do it? And I applaud them for doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, Mercado Libre is huge. They're one of the biggest retailers in Latin America, and I think it's a great sign for them to be doing this. And then let's just go into these Bitcoin treasury companies. Yeah. So David Bailey, he's got his conference next week. You're going to be there. Ross Ulbricht's going to be there. JD Vance, Cynthia Loomis, Michael Saylor. Yeah, what do you think about this this lineup at BTC Vegas?
I think it's the most exciting lineup yet. I'm also trying to hold my contain my excitement. I have heard that there's going to be more names announced. I don't know who they'll be, but I remember watching the conference last year. And as it was closing, I just bought my ticket immediately. I knew it was only getting more expensive. I think last time I went was in Miami in 2022. And if you haven't been to one of these conferences, I just would highly recommend it. It's where else are you going to get close to 10,000 other Bitcoiners? If you're persistent, you might get to meet your heroes. You know, you might get to meet Michael Saylor. One time I was standing right next to Max Kaiser, and I got to say hi to him, right? So these things come up. You can connect with others in meet space. You might even run into people who are local to your area who just like you don't get out to meetups, right? So I would highly recommend it. I'm especially excited for this one. I don't know what the numbers are looking like. I think it says they're 30,000 or something like that. But this is a kind of a pivotal moment in my eyes. I scraped the agenda to try to get a good layout of all the events because there's honestly so many that I want to see. I have to do a little planning here. But there's going to be representatives from BlackRock in the house, right? There's going to be a sitting vice president speaking. Trump's kids are going to be speaking. Senator Cynthia Loomis, right? There's literally going to be everything. I don't know if whether you're interested in strategic reserves or mining or like taking Bitcoin backed loans in the future. There's literally going to be anything you could want to hear about in the Bitcoin space there, and some really exciting names. And I don't know. I'm holding out that maybe Trump might come to this one again, but I don't know. When I heard that there's more exciting names, that's instantly where my head went.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think this is a Bitcoin conference, right? And you got the vice president, the president's sons, sitting senator, the crypto czar, and then the man who got one of the first pardons by Trump in term two,
to
right?
that point, my family member, my father-in-law, was asking me like, "What's the Bitcoin conference like?" I was like, "Actually, it's described as the largest finance conference in the U.S." So that's kind of what it is. I know a lot of Bitcoiners might hate that description, but I think it's more about them adopting us than it is about us adopting them, guys. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's hard with the Bitcoin conference in the sense that they always feel like they have to outdo themselves, right? And like last year they had Trump, how are you going to be bigger than that? So now they've got the sitting vice president. Interesting tidbit. Larry Lepard posted an email that he got from the Bitcoin crew, and they were offering $1 million tickets for a private meetup with JD Vance, a round table and a dinner, I think. So I mean, Trump, of course, he used the Bitcoin conference last year as a huge way to raise money, and I think they were selling for $700,000, $800,000. But now it's $1 million a ticket to get in with JD while he's in Vegas for the Bitcoin conference. It'll be interesting. Like, who do you think is willing to spend that much and would get $1 million worth of value out of that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's maybe if you're a Bitcoin pleb, I would recommend not spending your salary. That's going to be
10 Bitcoin.
Yeah,
10 Bitcoin for a dinner with JD Vance. Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, in terms of this conference overall, I mean, we're going to be there. Bitcoin is going to have a presence. We're media partners. We're going to be interviewing people on the floor. If you've never been, if you're new to Bitcoin, I think this is a great way to get started and to meet other Bitcoiners in real life. There's so many Bitcoiners who, when they get started, they have nobody else to talk to about this, right? So if you go to an event like this, you're going to be surrounded by thousands of people who are just as passionate as you, have the same interests, and who knows, maybe you'll find your next business partner, or maybe even your next girlfriend. So yes, I mean, it's a cool event to go to. Absolutely. I mean, my first one was 2021 in Miami, and that was a super special event because the whole world was shut down at the time, and they were one of the first events to have a large gathering. Florida opened the doors to them, and the vibes were immaculate. Bitcoin was over 50K for the first time. Everybody was just really, really, it felt like a new world was opening up. And since
Was
then,
that the one with the bull out front?
yes,
Yeah. That was
yes, yeah, that was choice. Great time. And Miami again, Nashville, now Vegas. Be interesting to see where they take it after this. But yeah, it's a week away. If you're interested, there's still tickets available. We will be there. And yeah, dude. I'm
I'll also
excited.
say, if you haven't looked into this, because like you want to stack sats, which is, by the way, I last 2 years, that's kind of where I was at. Um, things are really cheap in Vegas. Vegas is hurting. I was just looking at some place called the Strand, which is like the Needle, which is kind of far from the Strip though, but they're selling rooms for $20. You do have to pay another 50 for like a resort fee or whatever, but like Vegas is hella cheap right now. If you're on the fence about going, they're hurting. So
Yeah, and even if you can get to Vegas cheaply, you can obviously stay there for cheap. But there's plenty of side events too, right?
yep.
There's Rakamoto. There's a free concert over on Fremont Street on Wednesday night. There's Mandrick's Meat Boy Night over at Fogo de Chao on Monday, which we'll be at. PubKey and TFTC are throwing an event together. So
Yeah, that
there's
sounds really cool. And then there's a poker tournament too, unconfiscatable. That's free to attend if anyone doesn't have $1,000 to buy in.
are you a poker player?
I am a poker player, but that's a little rich for my blood. If it was a little lower, I could consider it for fun and that I might win. But I know some of those guys like Tone Vays are a little better than me. So I think at that point, I'd just be giving them my money.
Yeah, throwing away your sats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I've been to Vegas a couple of times. Actually, I mean, I guess I'll tell my Vegas story of I had purchased Bitcoin back in the mid 2010s, right? And I had no idea what I was doing. I bought it in 2016 and was able to get over a full Bitcoin for less than $1,000, right? And had it on a QR code just to print out from the Bitcoin ATM in a backpack, traveling with me. I had no idea about cold storage or a hardware wallet, any of that. And I just had this piece of paper with the seed phrase on it, right? And it was in my backpack in the Las Vegas airport. I put the backpack down on the ground, put $5 into a slot machine, lose the $5, and when I looked down, the backpack was gone, right? So that was my first foray into losing Bitcoin. And very, as you said, you gotta burn your hand on the stove at least once to really learn who's to learn the
I
importance of it.
wonder if that Bitcoin was ever taken though, because at that point in time, there's a fairly decent chance they didn't know what they were looking at.
I had no idea what they're. I mean, even today, right? If somebody was able to, if an average thief found a QR code on a piece of slip of paper, I highly doubt they would associate the two.
Mr. Beast has a great story of someone robbing his house, including his laptop, and he has 12 to 24 words, right? Like amongst this circle, we know what that means on his laptop. And he's like, "Oh, they took it; it's gone." Right? He recovers his seed. That's another pro tip for you guys. You know, write down your seed so you can recover it if you need to, and it's all there. The thief is so dumb they didn't know what Bitcoin is, right? Like,
so we're still ahead of the curve, right?
yeah, we are. We're early. We're early, guys.
But yeah. So I mean, if you are gonna go to Vegas, yeah, I mean, who am I to say how to spend your sats? But I mean, spend sats on merch, support artists, get T-shirts or whatever. But there's also going to be plenty of people who are just going to gamble it away too, right? So
Yeah, I think there's an initiative to do a Guinness World Record for the most Lightning transactions. I think it's only 4,000 in a day, which doesn't sound that crazy, but yeah, come on, buy a t-shirt, buy a little hodler.
yeah, get a little hodler. Lena. Yes. Yes. Lots of great opportunities to get decked out with all your Bitcoin stuff at the Bitcoin conference. But speaking of David Bailey, I brought him up because Nakamoto Holdings, his new Bitcoin treasury company, merged last week with Kindly MD to get immediately listed on the stock market. And they have plans to raise $710 million to buy Bitcoin. They did raise the money, but I don't think they've bought the Bitcoin until the merger goes completely through. But just to bring up their chart, when it was announced, this stock went straight up to $31. It's been cut in half since then, but has shown some strength in the last couple of days. But yeah, I mean, you're seeing all these stocks, and they're doing these mergers, right? These SPACs to get listed immediately. We've got 21, Jack Mallers Bitcoin Treasury Company. They are listed now under SEP, Cantor Equity Partners.
Yep.
And yeah, these guys had quite the week when they first launched, and they come back down to earth, but they seem to have found some strength here and are moving forward as Bitcoin edges back towards 105
Yeah.
here.
This is signal. I'm not buying into all of these things, just to be clear. But I mean, this is the signal. There's an insatiable appetite for this. And we're not just talking about me and you, right? The central banks, hedge funds, institutional investors, right? They want this. They have a large appetite for this.
They do. There's a lot of money that can't buy Bitcoin directly, and they want exposure. But
Yeah.
of course, our advice for anybody who's just a pleb out there: get the real thing. Get the real thing first. Establish a position, and then you can maybe think about some other Bitcoin exposure.
Totally.
But
I see a lot of young folks focusing really hard on MicroStrategy or MSTY or whatever. And unless you're like a whole coiner, right? I wanted to say millionaire, and I kind of avoided the fiat compulsion there. But unless you're a whole coiner, right? Don't worry about that stuff. Get to a coin, then you can worry about that other stuff.
yeah, I agree. It is funny to see this new crop, this 2024 class, 2025. They've just, since they've got into Bitcoin, there's been these things, right? These Bitcoin treasury companies, this equity exposure, this way to get alpha on Bitcoin. But if you haven't established your position right, like you shouldn't be playing with these things just yet. I mean,
Exactly. Because they say, well, this is 1.5 times Bitcoin, or this is 2 times Bitcoin. Why would I buy real Bitcoin, right? This is Bitcoin is freedom money, right? I know we're streaming here, so if the whatever hits the fan, guys, right? Your MicroStrategy is not going to save you.
no. Yeah, you could. Those stocks can be taken from you very easily. It is not a peer-to-peer digital cash with no third-party intermediary. There's a third party there, a big one. And yeah, I mean, it's not even like you can hold the stock certificate and say you own it anymore, right? Those days are long gone.
Which
Long
I mean,
gone.
I think we're probably heading into a world here, which is not today. So I don't want to waste my time on like financialized tokens. I don't know what blockchain it'll happen on, right? I hope it happens on Bitcoin because I know that blockchain will be there. But I mean, there's a reason why we don't use stocks as money today, right? Because you need a third party intermediary, right? This is the critical innovation of Bitcoin, right? I think a lot of people don't get that. I talk to a lot of people who talk about, oh, I like Bitcoin, it's cool, right? But I just want to leave it in the exchange. To each their own, right? But like the critical innovation of Bitcoin is that you can take custody of it. Like imagine if I made something like Bitcoin, but it only worked in my website, right? And you could buy it, you can't take it out, you can't move it. It's just in my website, right? There's no value there.
You're 100% right. This is freedom money, and again, use it. Like you don't understand that power until you've actually sent Bitcoin. So you've bought things with it.
Send it to yourself too. Just make a new wallet, send it. Wow, I just teleported value across the world, right? Get comfortable.
Yeah, get comfortable. Cool. Yeah, I mean we're coming up towards the end of the hour here, and so I think one thing that we should maybe touch upon before getting out of here is this Moody's downgrading its credit rating for the United States by a notch from AAA to AA1,
Yeah.
citing rising debt and interests that are significantly higher than similarly rated sovereigns. So, I mean, if we go to the debt clock, take a look. Yeah, I mean, we're adding almost $1 trillion to this every 100 days or so now, right? It's getting out of control. This Doge was an abject failure, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they said that they were going to save $1 trillion a year from doing that. No, they cut 150 billion, and then they raised the military budget by the same amount, right? And now there's this new spending bill that the Republicans want to pass through that just completely blows this out of the water, right? So this is not slowing down, guys. This is why we Bitcoin, and there. I remember seeing this site back in 2010, right? And this number was less than half of this, but it's each presidency every 4 years they're adding 8 trillion plus to this.
Yeah. So true. And I mean, we all have our political leanings, right? Like, and I just happen to vote for the right a little bit more than the left, but the sad truth is they print more, the same, if not more, right? So I was optimistic to kind of see Doge happening. I applaud anyone who wants to cut fraud, waste, abuse, whatever. But the sad truth is that it's pretty much hopeless. I mean, we could try, but we're never gonna solve this. I love the new trend of seeing like Thomas Mazzi having the debt. He has like a little LED ticker with the debt clock on his suit, and I think that's a good. I think I mean every politician should think like this, right? I hate to be so pessimistic that there's no solving this, barring like some new Bretton Woods agreement where we basically blow this thing up and start anew. And I think that's probably because we spent like it's just got like it'll never matter, right? Like, and now we've gotten to this point where we can never get out of it. Um, it's just kind of crazy that we've gotten to this point. And all I can think about is when you mentioned that Moody's story earlier. This is a lagging indicator, right? This did not happen in the past 100 days. Trump didn't boom poof cause this, right? I'm not trying to say Trump is amazing and he does no wrong, right? But like he didn't just like poof. This has been happening, right? And all I can think of is in The Big Short when they go to the ratings agency and they're like, hey, these mortgage default swaps are not being rated correctly or whatever. The lady literally is blind, just had like LASIK surgery and can't see anything. I think that's a great analogy for these rating agencies and even some of these politicians who are completely unaware of this debt issue. I mean, I saw a recent bill to spend $14 trillion. And I was just like, what do you think that's going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's as if they have no concepts of basic economics, right?
Yeah.
But when you're that close to the money printer, you and your friends get the benefits, so you don't really seem to care to the fact that this is getting untenable. And this number will just keep going up until it breaks, until the government can no longer, until the bond rates get blown out, right? And we're seeing that. We're seeing the 10-year creep up this morning. Yeah, this is on the hourly, right?
Confirmed, but last night I saw an article yesterday that like the Fed is buying bonds, kind of like stealth QE. I'm not an expert in this stuff, and I don't know, but there's rumblings of this stuff.
Yeah, I saw George Gammon try to he refuted that in some way, and I
Okay.
don't know the exact plumbing of it, but yeah, at the end of the day, they're going to need to monetize this debt, right? No one else is going to want to buy these notes, these treasuries, and so the Fed will need to print the money to buy them, and that just means that every single dollar that they continue to print means every dollar in your pocket is worth less. And that is why we Bitcoin, because it is the greatest sponge to absorb all this. But I guess the whole point of this is that the warning signs are there, right? They're flashing red. The 10-year is at 4.5%, where for years over the last decade, it was at the bottom here, right? It was down below 1% in 2020, 2021, and it had come down after this great bull market in bonds that we'd seen over the last 4 years, over our whole entire lifetimes, and it flipped, right? This trend has changed, and now it seems as if there isn't as much desire for this debt. You're going to need to pay them a lot more money, a lot higher interest rate, in order to convince them to buy it. And then this morning, Japan, he came out and said, their 40-year bond is exploding too. So the situation is not too pretty, and it's not just America; it's around the world. The whole entire world is drowning in debt, whether it's America or China. China too, man. China's.
So I just want to point out, I happen to be Greek. My parents are from Greece, and they mentioned their situation is currently worse than Greece.
Yes.
For people who don't know, I'd just like to zoom in on that. Greece has had austerity measures. They were taking money out of people's bank accounts, and they lost their ability to print money. The euro came in and said, you're not to be trusted. So that's where Japan is headed.
Yeah, and Japan is a top 3 economy in the world, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting times, but this is why we Bitcoin, and this is why it's so important to be talking about Bitcoin, to educate yourself, educate others, and spread the word. So yes, James, that was awesome. Great pleasure speaking with you this morning. Happy to
Great time.
Gone over Bitcoin News Weekly. You can get the newsletter at weekly.bitcoinnews.com. Go right there and sign on up. It's a great issue. Comes out every single Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, right into your inbox. It saves you hours every single week of scrolling through X. Let me do that. That's my job. Your job is to go enjoy your life. And yes, I had a great time speaking with you, James. Thanks again. And
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. We will see each other in Vegas.
Yeah, looking forward to catching up in Vegas.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks.